we're going to go over lesson 92. So in lesson 92, we're going to talk about parallelograms. Now a parallelogram, I have the definition written here in blue, and I'm going to keep that up here. A parallelogram is a quadrilateral with two pairs of parallel sides. So a quadrilateral has 4 sides and 2 pairs of parallel sides. So parallel is right next to each other. They will never cross. So if you have parallel lines if you have lines and one of them is slightly tipped, if they're not touching right now, that still doesn't mean they're parallel. Parallel means that they will never ever touch. So if you were to keep these 2 lines going, eventually they'll touch. So that's not parallel. So like this. If you were able to draw these perfectly and they would keep going, they would never ever touch. So example 1 says, which of these quadrilaterals is not a parallelogram? So all of these quadrilaterals, so these shapes with 4 sides, we have to check to see which ones have 2 pairs of parallel sides. So I'm going to use the blue marker, and I'm going to show you where the parallel sides are. So in F, you can see right here and right here. Those are parallel lines. So that's 1. Now, you also have parallel lines going this way. 1, 2. Those ones will never touch either. So these do have 2 parallel lines here. Now, on letter G, these on the left and right are parallel lines, and on the top going across and on the bottom going across, those are parallel lines. So you also have 2 parallel lines on G. On H, I see parallel lines on the left and the right. If these were to continue, they would never touch. Now on going across, this is shaped like this on the bottom. And then on the top, it's kind of shaped at an angle going upwards like this. Now, these, if you keep going this way, will never touch. But if you were to go this way, they're going to touch in this corner in the back. So this one does not have 2, only 1. And then just to double check, I want to make sure that letter I is a parallelogram. So the ones going across, those are like this. Oops, I can't get it quite right. They will never cross if they're straight across. And this one's at an angle, but this one's at the same exact angle. So they're both going to keep going. They will never touch either. Okay? So the only one that's not a parallelogram would be H. Example 2. Draw 2 parallel line segments of different lengths. Then form a quadrilateral by drawing 2 line segments that connect the endpoints. What type of quadrilateral did you make? So I'm going to go back and reread because there's multiple steps here happening. So I'm going to go back to that first sentence that says draw 2 parallel line segments of different length. 2 parallel line segments. Okay, there's parallel, but then it said they have to be different lengths. So I'm going to make one longer. That is not perfect at all, but that's okay. As best as you can. Then form a quadrilateral by drawing two line segments that connect the endpoints. So if we're making a quadrilateral, we need four sides. Right now we only have 1, 2. We're going to connect those endpoints, so we get a third side and a fourth side. Now the question says, what type of quadrilateral did you make? So I'm actually going to reference this book up here, and at the top of page 585, if you need to pause the video, go ahead, page 585. So at the top of that page, it explains the different types of quadrilaterals there are. So at the beginning it says a parallelogram is a quadrilateral with two pairs of parallel sides. That's what I have written up here in blue. But then if you keep reading, it goes into detail of the different types you can have. So a trapezoid, that's the next definition. It's a quadrilateral with exactly one pair of parallel sides. And then it also gives you examples. So it says example E up here is an example of a trapezoid, which is actually just what this looks like right here, what we drew. So to double check, a trapezoid has only one pair of parallel sides, which is exactly what this is. These two lines right here are parallel to each other. So this guy is a trapezoid. Example 3. Which of the following quadrilaterals has sides that are not parallel or perpendicular? So when you have a statement that says or, that means it has to have both of these. So which ones do not have parallel lines or perpendicular lines, okay? So as we go through, I'm going to start with letter A. Letter A has parallel sides on the bottom and the top and on the left and right. They also have perpendicular lines because they make L's in every corner actually. So it's not going to be A because letter A has both parallel and perpendicular lines. So it's the complete opposite of what they're asking us. Now letter B has parallel lines, okay, going across and on the bottom, the top and bottom. Those are parallel. These lines will never touch. Same with the ones going diagonal. Okay, if you keep going, these will never touch either. So these have two parallel lines here. They don't have perpendicular lines because these don't make a perfect L. A perfect L would make a right angle, which these do not have. So this also doesn't qualify for what they're asking us because it has parallel lines, but it doesn't have perpendicular. We're looking for it to have neither of those things. So it can't be B either. Letter C, well, that's a funky shape. Well, I do not see any parallel lines here. This line and this line, they intersect. That won't work. These two lines intersect, so that's not parallel. And then this line right here with this line, they will eventually touch. If these were to keep going, and this one was keep going this way, they will eventually touch paths and cross. So this one does not have parallel lines. No parallel. Okay, now it's wondering if it has any perpendicular lines. A perpendicular line will make a perfect L, or in some cases the T's, okay, where they cross at a perfect 90-degree angle. All sides would, or all angles would be 90 when they cross. In this case, in letter C, there is nowhere on here that looks like a perfect L. Nothing makes the 90 degrees that I can see. So this one does not have perpendicular lines either. Now let's take a look at letter D, because we know that C fits the criteria, but maybe D doesn't. So does D have parallel lines? Yes, I can see them right away, right? Going across, these ones are parallel. So that does not fit our criteria. It's not going to be D, but just to check through to make sure it does, make sure we check for perpendicular lines too. It makes a perfect L on the top left corner, and it makes a perfect L on the bottom left corner. So this one has both parallel and perpendicular lines, which is opposite again of what they were asking. So in example 3, C is your answer. Example 4, describe the angles in example 3. So I redrew the examples from example 3 without any drawings on them. So I'm just going to start off with letter A. Now letter A gives us these little boxes in the corner. If you don't remember what that stands for, it means that it's a right angle, which is 90 degrees. So I know that all of my angles are right. So they're all right angles. Letter B, well, if these in this corner were going to be right angles, it would make that perfect L. Oops. So I can see that it's inside of that right angle, so that means it's smaller than it. So if it's smaller than a right angle, that's an acute. Okay, now I go up here and I make a perfect L. Now this one has a line coming out on the outside of the outside of the right angle. So if it's bigger than a right angle, then it's an obtuse angle. So right now we have one acute angle and one obtuse angle. I'm just going to keep going around to all the angles, and then we can count how many of each there are. So this one, the angle is inside of a right angle, so it's smaller, which is an acute. So right now we have two acutes and one obtuse. Now we have one more angle to look at. This line. Oops. I drew that funky. Sorry. I had to make sure the corners match up. So that would be a perfect looking L. Now this angle's on the outside of it, so that's bigger than a right angle, so that's an obtuse. So I go around and check. I have two acute, and then I have two obtuse. Now letter C, I'm going to go around and do the same things. I'm going to draw in my L's. Okay, I'm going to go around and look for acute angles because I don't have any right angles. So this one right here, it was really close to being a right angle, but if you were to look closely, that blue line was a little bit outside of it. So that's one obtuse so far. I'm going to go clockwise. This one is acute because the angle is inside of the right angle. So right now I have one obtuse and one acute. Keep going clockwise. This angle is inside of the L, so that's an acute. So now we have two acutes. And keep going clockwise. This one, the blue line, and this angle is outside of the L, so that's an obtuse. So in letter C, it's kind of like letter B. There's two obtuse and two acute. Now last one on letter D. These little boxes remind us that those are right angles. So we can tell just by looking at this that there's two right angles. Now we have to figure out what these two angles are. So I'm going to draw my L's, match up in that corner. So this one, the angle is bigger than an L, so that's obtuse. And then in this angle, I'm going to draw my L. It's smaller than the L, so that's an acute. So in letter D, there are 3 types of angles.